Welcome to week 114, count it, week 114 of Shark Sports Radio. Alongside of me is Andrew George. He goes by Ticket. It's yours truly, Mark Loisel Jr., a.k.a. Shark, right here in the Ocean State. Thank you all for taking a dive in the tank with us tonight. As always, you can tune in using your Apple Podcast, SoundCloud, and or Spotify app. Check us out on YouTube at the Shark Sports Radio channel. Check us out on X at SSR34_. And also TikTok at Shark Sports Radio. Ticket, how are we?
Doing pretty good. Pretty good. It's weird time in the sports calendar, but we got NBA, NHL playoffs around the corner. We got the Masters, which started today, which I know we'll dive into. But yeah, what can you say? The dog days of the sports season.
The dog days of the sports season, everybody calls it. First and foremost, we'd like to give a shout out to Ravenous Brewing Company. Thank you for supporting us and allowing us to take a adventure to the brewery. And it was a fun night. We had a lot of jokes, a lot of pizza thrown around, a lot of drinks throwing around, and we had a great time, as you could probably tell. So, how about that visit, Ticket?
Oh, it was awesome. Got a chance to try the seltzers, even though it didn't make me feel so wimpy for wanting to have some. So I appreciated that. Justin over there, I felt kind of girly going over to him. Not that we disparage.
I had
but,
it. He's a seltzer.
He's a pretty big guy. You don't want to, cross him. Hey, no IPA, no love for the IPAs. But listen, they got a great selection there. You love IPAs. You like Pilsners, you like seltzers. Doesn't matter. They got it all there.
And the weather's getting better. So, next week's going to be around the 60s. We're getting into the warmer side of April. And then obviously May and June, you guys will be loving it. So hit up Ravenous Brewing Company in Cumberland, Rhode Island. Thank you very much again for hosting us. Tonight, we conclude our thoughts for the 2025 March Madness tournament. We will discuss our thoughts heading down the stretch in the NBA season. And then we also give our Masters picks. I know it's Thursday night and round one has gone, but we made our picks. We made our picks prior. So we will definitely get into that.
Got the receipts.
We got the receipts. Trust me. Speaking of receipts, go play Underdog today. I'm telling you right now, use the promo code Shark Sports. Again, Luka Doncic, we're going to talk about it quickly too before we get into, the March Madness tournament very quickly. But with Luka Doncic, there's a discount every single game down the stretch here in the season. I know there's 3 or 4 games left. Take full advantage. Look at last night. Last night's performance, Ticket. How good was last night's game? It might have been one of the most underrated performances that we've seen a long time in NBA history, because a guy that was so emotionally, just bought in at the start of the game, and then he drops 45 like it's nothing, almost a triple-double, and the guy's just a beast. And, he just proved to Dallas, you should have never did that to me. And he was very emotional because he wanted to stay. He wanted to take the Dirk route, right? And so what are your thoughts on last night with Luka?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, first of all, great for shouting out Underdog there, especially with the discounted Luka picks, a couple games left to do it. But yeah, I mean, it's already stealing. When I was going to say last night before I didn't realize they were playing until I get out of work. I jump on the phone real quick. What are the games I can watch tonight? Luka's return to Dallas. And I jump on Underdog, and I'm like, oh, what's the higher, lower than amount set up by Underdog? And I'm like, 31 for points, huh? 31 for points. And then they discounted it. So
they discounted.
On top of it, it hit in the first half. Luka had 31 at halftime. 6 of 8 from 3. And I was telling this to one of my buddies last night before the game. We're texting, and I was like, can you remember a time where the player that returns back to where, and listen, it's kind of crazy too, because he wasn't in, I know he was obviously in Dallas, is what we know him as a Maverick, and everyone thought he would be there forever. But it's not like he played there super long. It's not like he won a championship. He got them to the finals last year, of course. But really, for that small window, everyone fell in love with him, which goes to show how great of a player he is and what he meant to that city and that rebuild and the transfer of, like, we had this great international legend in Dirk Nowitzki, the next great one in Luka Doncic, that whole thing. But when a player returns, I think of LeBron going to Cleveland and how hostile that was. I think of Durant going back to OKC, they taunted him with the cupcakes and how they, the brutal environment he awaited there when he returned. It was nothing but love and both ways last night. And you like to see that. The fans, obviously, I mean, you saw everything last night, the signs, fans taping their Mavericks jersey with Lakers and Luka, and they chanted obviously at the end about firing the GM and everything that went into it. But yeah, I mean, Luka was dominant. Everyone thought like, oh, he's going to come out scorched earth, and he did. Exceeded expectations, almost a 45-point triple-double, as you said, Shark. What can you say? And by the way, the Lakers, a separate note, everyone talked about when this trade happened, and myself included, I didn't think this team was built to contend this year. But they throttled the Thunder in Oklahoma City Sunday. Yeah. And then I know Dallas is, they probably will be a play-in team game. I'm not saying they're a great team. But for them, an emotional game. They pulled away in the fourth quarter last night. They've also smoked the Nuggets twice since getting Luka. And now the Nuggets, by the way, they got their own set of issues. But the Lakers, they might just do it, Shark. They might just head to the win the Western Conference Finals, and might really be a legitimate title contender with this pairing.
I'm not going to say no. I look at that team, and they have all the makeup to do so, right? And JT Redick is, a shining star in the coaching ranks right now. He really is. He's had a great season. Obviously, he's got talent around him, as we all know. But I think what's good for the Lakers is LeBron doesn't have to be the hero. Right. It can now be in the hands of Luka Doncic. He can run that team how he wants to do it with JJ Redick. And, it's good for now, and it's good for the foreseeable future, when you look at the LA Lakers and the way they're built. So I think the present where they're at right now, having shooters around Luka being able to go one-on-one against guys, posting up on the block, which you see often, his little tricks and, the way he's so elusive in the paint, and looking for guys around the perimeter. And then, like I said, with LeBron and what he's capable of doing, yeah, I can absolutely see them getting to the Western Conference Finals and possibly winning it, going to the NBA Finals. But I think when you look at the makeup of the team right now, they can play with anybody. Same with Golden State in my eyes. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Golden State too.
I would agree with you.
I think Jimmy Butler in the playoffs, he's a dog. Draymond Green, he's the attitude of that team. Steph Curry, a great leader with a great shooting, parole. And so I got to understand down the stretch where these matchups are going to play a factor. And we'll get into it momentarily. So, but if we may flip it over to the other side, which is the NCAA tournament, I do want to discuss the way that Duke went out, right? Because I think it's just it has to be talked about, right? It's just a part of the, the news, that everybody clings on, and it's Cooper Flag for me. Like, 10 minutes left, and choke was it an 8-point lead?
They were up. I think it was 9 with 2.5 left. They're up 13 or 14 with like 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, and so I look at that team, and I feel bad for Cooper Flag, right? Because the overall goal him going to Duke was absolutely to win an NCAA tournament, so then he can go into the NBA, and feel good about where he is. And that's not to say he doesn't feel good, going into the NBA, but I think it helps going through this process and developing winning habits and in the postseason and performing well. And John Shire, I'm sorry, your team didn't show up, but you did just as bad down the stretch.
Really bad.
Really bad. Out of bounds timeout plays, awful. Just really lackadaisical passes. You saw a lot of turnovers. They didn't go at their pace like they were for the entirety of the game. They were at great pace, and then they slowed down. And it's like when you slow down, as we've seen it throughout this tournament, it can catch up to you very, very quickly. And Duke found a way to absolutely piss all over themselves. It was just absolutely gross to see. When you look at that team and how talented they were, and throughout the entire tournament, how dominant they were, beating teams by 40, like there's no excuse. So that's a choke job. That might be one of the biggest choke jobs that we've seen in quite some time. And so Duke, really, you got to get better in that category if you want to bring in recruits and feel like you have a chance to win, especially with Coach K watching too.
Well, a couple points I wanted to bring. Yes, I think it's one of the worst collapses we've seen in the tournament. John Shire was getting all this publicity, and rightfully so, I suppose, for being like the next great college basketball coach. He's obviously young. He's going to be there a long time. He's not going anywhere. Coach K, the succession plan with him. But boy, was that a disaster. And real, like you said, I mean, there's simple things like, especially now what they allow you to do on the inbounds pass in terms of, you could toss it to another guy. You could run. I mean, look what Florida does. They basically run like a football play, have all five guys on the sideline,
on the
side out, and then they run like routes like they're receivers. And they can toss it to somebody else before the guy who's holding the ball, toss it to the guy next to him, and then everyone else goes out. There's so much creativity that you can do. The other thing, too, is you have Knipple, who shoots in the 90s percentile-wise. Cooper Flagg, these are big guys that you can get the ball. And I understand, Flagg, he's got the size. You're worried about if you have the guard take it in. Maybe the pass gets deflected. Houston obviously, very active they're a defensive team. That was their calling card. I get those concerns there. But how do you not get into the ball into Knipple's hands or Flagg's hands is crazy to me. How you have not something designed. And then just the lack of creativity. Also, even the shot at the end by Flagg wasn't terrible. He had a decent look. But also, they're in the bonus, foul trouble. I would have liked to have seen Cooper Flagg, and they had the size. I would have liked to have seen maybe attacking the rim more than a fadeaway.
Put him on the block. I was literally screaming. You got to utilize him in different ways. It's like you're basically just –
that was the talk before the game. Houston couldn't rebound with them. And I thought the one advantage Houston would have, and we talked about it a little bit, but they're older. They're 23 years. They're more grown men. Duke are young boys. They're young. They're freshmen. Physically, you might be the mentality that Houston have where they get in your face and they're older and they're more physical. And you saw them. They out-rebounded Duke by 11. They had 8 more offensive rebounds. By the way, I know, we're going to talk about the championship game, but Houston just they looked obviously like the better coach team. And that's where the experience matters and it's talented. This was a Duke team that was talked about as being maybe one of the best teams ever had they gone on to win the national title. One of the best teams ever. And Ken Pom and statistically all the stat nerds out there, the statistics would dictate that they were one of the best teams. By the way, all 4 number 1 seeds, Ken Pom ranked in the would be ranked in the top 10 all time in terms of metrics.
Yep.
Top 10 all time. All 4 number 1 seeds this year, which, goes to show you whatever about where we are in the world of stats and sports and all that whole thing. But at the end of the day, Duke did not play a lot of close games throughout the regular season because they blew everybody out. They got into a dogfight at the end of this game with a junkyard dog in Houston. That's the type of game they want to play. And they got bit. And by the way, it's a learning experience. John Shire, this is his first real big tournament run. You referenced Flagg and I'm talking about Knipple and those young freshman studs.
Mm-hmm.
And NIL, there is a world where maybe guys like that. Now, I'm not going to say Flagg is because he's the no doubt number 1 pick. God forbid something happens, he gets hurt. You can't come back. But now with the way NIL and the NBA contracts for rookies, like the difference in money,
it's not that big.
Won't be crazy. It won't be crazy.
No, I agree with you, and I think Cooper Flag, been icing on the cake for him to get that title, right? So, he probably is kicking himself. But let's talk about the big game, the national championship. You had Houston and Florida. I'm gonna jump right into the second half because that's really all that matters to me. Defensively, Houston was on top of their game throughout the entire course of the game. And then, you can say it down the stretch is where they just kind of got tired and they couldn't make shots anymore, right? And Florida, talk about another choke job, right? Like Florida comes back down by 12. Like, and Clayton Jr., and I said this to my buddy, I texted him because Clayton Jr. got absolutely shut out in the first 20 minutes of that game.
25, I think the first half and early second half, he didn't have a
early second half. Good call. Yes, he did. So I was saying this guy's going to come in and he's going to lay it up in the second half. And he found a way to get himself more involved. You saw a little bit more hostility when it came to, the grunginess of the Gators, right? They came out and they're like, you had Elijah Martin come in and, be the beast he is. And, that dunk was absolutely phenomenal. And then one thing that stood out to me is Todd Golden, the way he was coaching that team. It looked like he was professionally coaching and holding guys accountable. It really zoning in on the fact that this is reality. This is a national championship game. Do you guys want to go out like this? Absolutely not. And one costly thing, and I forget, the big, but him obviously bouncing the ball high and getting a tech was not the best, discipline by that player. But I will say, if anything, it kind of woke the guys up a little bit. And I'm not saying fully, and I'm not saying you do that. But if you get a team like Houston that's getting in your face, being very physical and trying to make things, happen in your head defensively, you got to find a way to break that. And I think that's kind of like the breaking point of that game. He was trying to make a statement and use some type of force. It was too big of a statement. It was so close of a game. You don't want to utilize that in that time. But I think it helped Clayton Jr. to get in perspective and say all right, I got to fucking wake up in order to play and win a national championship. So Martin was, amazing. Clayton was great. Hawk came down the stretch and really played a good game in the paint. So Todd Golden, national championship, goes to the Gators, which is impressive. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, Shark. I had a future ticket from before the tournament on Houston to win it all, so I was a little bit disappointed. It felt like a shock to me that Houston lost the game, honestly, because they were in control. But I was watching with one of my good buddies. He was actually at Ravenous Brewery. My buddy Vin, who's the Rockies fan.
Yep.
And Jazz fan and all those weird teams. But we're watching the game, and I turned to him and I said, we talked about it. It's so much harder for Houston to get their points than it was Florida. And when Houston went up double digits, then I was like, okay, I don't think they're going to lose this game because their defense is so good. But they weren't making shots. And it labors them so much to play defense as much as they have. And listen, they played Duke 2 days prior and they held Duke under 70 points. They really did shut them down. They rebounded. They were everything. They played such a great game, and it was such an emotional, exhausting game. And to do it again 2 days later, and it has to be the biggest game of their life. Cryer stepped up. I thought Cryer played well. He needed help. I think the big telling stat that shows the difference too in Houston really had to work for every single point. And with Florida, it could come in bunches easy. Was if you look at the assist, Houston had 5 assists on all their made shots. Florida had 14. And 14 is not a great number. Houston, obviously, but it just shows you that a lot of ISO ball late in shot clock, a lot of dribbling.
Yeah.
They could not move the ball very well against Florida. And Florida had a lot of size. They were afraid to get in the paint. They didn't drive and kick a lot. And I want to say this too. As much heat as Chris Webber gets for obviously one of the biggest like choke jobs from a player, you got to wonder if Sharp is in that conversation, because I think it might have been worse. I honestly do. I mean, the 2 turnovers at the end when you have your and that last one, like get the ball, shot up. There's no time left. Throw the ball up.
Yeah.
And it was a contest, and there was a late contest. Maybe even get the foul call. Who knows? But
that was my thought. Is if you're gonna pump fake, do the pump fake. Like, don't just go up in the air and try to commit a foul. You know what I mean? Like, do the pump and then go up, because Clayton Jr. would have done the same thing if it was different sides. So I like the contest by Clayton Jr. though. I did. Yeah. It proved that, like, he can make winning plays when it matters. And if there's any fun element of that game and what the Gators did down the stretch, is I love the off-ball movement by Clayton Jr. coming off of screens. Like, drawing up a double screen, having coming off that screen for a 3 was just impressive. It was the perfect play call in order to get him in the groove, right? Got him in the groove. And then from there, he's just really lights out, and he's a hell of a shooter. Great free throw shooter too. He's making all of his free throws.
He had those back-to-back, like not back-to-back, but like so that 3 was off the double screen was only made 3 of the game.
Only made.
But it came at the biggest time. They're down 3. They're on this run, and it's capped the run. It forced Houston's timeout with, I think, about 2.5, 3 minutes left. And then, but even during that run, they're down, 10-11, and he gets the tough lay and the N1 and completes it. And then he had another N1 later in that rally. And it's just every big emotional play Clayton drove. And then at the end with that contest, it was the difference to cause Sharp to obviously to travel. And that's the game. I don't know how you don't get the ball out there.
I also don't think that was the travel, because if you look at it, right, the way that the ball, so I understand when the ball goes up, you're not allowed to touch it, right? Like it's like basically anything else. But I think he can actually pick the ball up and dribble it again. I mean, I could be wrong, and I'm hand up if I am, but I think it wasn't a travel because the way he went up, and I think he had the ability to dribble, but I could be wrong. Like I said, as long as you don't come back down with it,
right?
That's what I've been told. And so it also depends if it was deflected, as you know, and Clayton didn't deflect. Well, no, Clayton did, right? Did he get?
I don't know if he deflected it or if it was. I don't think he did. But it was a late contest. Listen. It's your entire season. Like, you don't have time to.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Just let it go.
Maybe it could have been a foul. You never know.
And to be honest with you, I hate the play call. I'm relying on Crier. I'm relying on Crier with the game on the line, and sudden death. You win or you go home. It's Crier. There's no other. Other choice. There's no other choice. Yeah, exactly.
Baffling loss for. I don't know if you're a Houston fan, how you stomach that, because you were in control most of the game. Yeah, like I said, you were waiting for Florida. Like, Florida's done the UConn game. They did it against Michigan. They did it against why am I blanking on this? Auburn. Every game, every big game they've had this tournament, it was okay. It's under 3 minutes.
It's go time. Yeah,
and then you're winning plays in Golden, like you said.
That's all that matters, Ticket. That's all that matters. They make winning plays, right? You could hang, defensively, against Houston, right? Houston's not the best scoring team, right? They aren't, but they are a hell of a defensive team. They only allow 60 points per game in all of NCAA ranks, and they ranked number 1. So the fact that Florida came out in that second half and showed what type of team they are, I think this is one of the more impressive wins that we've seen in quite a little bit, because of the expectations coming in with Houston being that great of a physicality team. And then obviously offensive prowess with, the Gators and Clayton Jr. and Martin, they're stacked. So let's flip it over back to the professional court. coming into Monday, I looked at the standings and, you had the Cavs and the Celtics leading the East. You had the Thunder and the Rockets leading the West. But one thing that, stuck out to me is when you look at the Western Conference, there's a very, very tight race. On Monday, it was a 4-way tie hanging in with 4 games left between the 5 seed and the 8 seed. So what kind of teams do you look for to get between that 5 and 8 seeds? Because it's very, very, very close. And so the matchups are going to be insanely fun in the playoffs. But between those 5 and 8 range, what kind of, catches your eye?
I mean, and to go even one step further, there's a 2.5 game difference between the Lakers in the 3 spot and the Timberwolves in the 8 spot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's razor thin, but like you said, that race between like 5 and 8, and 5. I mean, it's game and a half with all those teams jumbled up there. I'm just curious to see where the chips fall. I mean, a lot of the times, like we've seen in the past, like teams kind of know more or less who their matchup is, and maybe they start resting guys, or they sit guys knowing that they want to drop to this spot so they can get this matchup. I would say LeBron and his Cavs teams going back a bit were famous for kind of trying to orchestrate that. He's kind of the originator of it doesn't matter. We don't care about our seed. We just want to be healthy and be rested.
Load management at the end of the year.
Yes, right? Yes, the load management, as they say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking to see like potentially. Listen, there's a half game difference between the Warriors in the 7 spot and the Grizzlies in the 6.
Yep.
And I'm not just saying this as a Laker fan, but if I was a basketball fan, Lakers Warriors in the 3-6 in the first round would be unbelievable television.
Yeah. It'd be
unbelievable. Incredible. And I think that might be the Western Conference Finals, you could argue.
It could.
Whoever comes out of that we'll then see probably Houston in the next round, and then would get the Thunder, and we're obviously getting ahead of ourselves, but I don't really see how the Rockets or Thunder get bounced prior. But I mean, I guess you never know. I mean, the fact that we could see Denver and OKC in the second round is a tremendous matchup. It's going to be interesting. I mean, there's more parity this year, especially the West. I mean, it's been the Thunder, obviously, from start to finish, and I hate to discount them, but I don't think I'm the only one saying it. Like, it's hard to really trust them because they're so young.
All I can say is you got the Warriors, you got the Timberwolves, you got the Kings, and you got the Mavericks for the play-in tournament, right? And so I look at that matchup and I say, don't let the Warriors win. Don't let them win. Because I'm telling you right now, even if they get into the 8 seed, 7 seed, whatever it is, that team is scary going into the Western Conference Finals if they get there. So be very, very strategic in what you wish for down the stretch in these games. Like, for example, you bring it up, but like the Nuggets, right? The Nuggets are 18 games back, and the Lakers are 17, right? So if you're the Nuggets, if the Warriors find a way, to secure the 6th seed, I am begging to stay away from that team.
Yeah, I'd much rather see the Clippers.
Yeah, I would much rather see the Clippers. Even though James Harden's having a hell of a year. And, Kawhi Leonard's back and healthy and all those guys. But I think when you look at the Nuggets and the way that their team is currently constructed and their management not happy with the coaching and their management also not happy with their general manager, it says that team can definitely be a one-hit wonder, first-round bounce. And if you look at who they could potentially play, like you said, the Clippers, or if they get into the 3 seed, where the Lakers are and the Warriors move up to 6, bye-bye to the Denver Nuggets, because that team is an absolute mess of an organization right now. So
I don't know how they can fire.
I don't know.
Mark Malone like that. And then, I mean, the same thing with Taylor Jenkins. What kind of season were you expecting with Memphis? I mean, this was a team that missed the playoffs last year. You know, I know right now, what are they, the 6th seed? But when they fired Jenkins, they were right there in contention for the 3rd or 4th spot in the West. They were having a great year. They were bouncing between, like, at one point, they were 2nd place in the Western Conference. They were a very good competitive. He was getting the most out of that team.
He was. He was absolutely. And just to touch upon Denver really quickly. So there's been word out there that, you know, ownership wanted to see more of Michael Porter Jr. And I think Michael Porter Jr. just didn't sit well with Mike Malone. And I feel like, you know, when you have a good player like Michael Porter Jr., you're only playing on 25, 30 minutes a game when he should be playing in the starting role. I think it speaks to, you know, the roster construction. Maybe they're not the biggest fan of how Mike Malone's running that. But also, let's call it what it is, especially with Memphis too. Like, sorry, if you're not getting along with the superstars of your team, John Morant and Taylor Jenkins, well, you got to go. And this could be also, you know, the same sequence with the Denver Nuggets with Mike Malone and Jokic. Who knows if they soar eye to eye, or Jamal Murray, or whatever, you know, the Michael Porter Jr. aspect too, and all of this. I think maybe it just didn't sit well with him. And then you have the general manager who gets fired along with him. You kind of wonder, you know, what was happening behind closed doors, and we'll probably find out soon. But I think the Michael Porter Jr., you know, news report, which I forget who it was somebody in the Denver Post, but I think you got to recognize that there is some type of turmoil in that locker room, and it probably was not the best thing. And because you don't just get rid of your coach, you know, 10 games before the season ends going into the playoffs, just like with the Memphis Grizzlies. It's just kind of like a head scratcher. I can see Memphis because Ja was not the biggest fan of, you know, Taylor Jenkins. They didn't see eye to eye when that happens.
Is John Morant really the best guy to be judging character, by the way?
No, but if he's your guy, if he's your foundational piece, right? You don't want to piss off the superstar that you have on your team, because guess what? He could be the next Luka going out the door. So you got to pinpoint exactly what happened. Nobody really knows, right? And probably the players, that's probably the worst part, is a lot of the players that are bought into the system and bought into the franchise and believe that they can have a chance going into the playoffs now scratch their head and say, well, what the hell is ownership doing? Like, we're getting rid of our coach, we're firing our GM.
Right before the playoffs.
Right before the playoffs. There's absolutely no excuse. I think that was poor decision by Denver to do that. You wait until the end of the year. I don't care what it is. You do not do that with 10. It was 10 games left in the regular season.
And by the way, you have a chance to win. Like, they're a contender.
You don't.
And now you wonder what exactly is going to come of them. But I don't know. I mean, they're a mess.
They are a mess. To talk about the West a little bit more. So I said this before from downtown segment. Ticket can allude to this. I had the Rockets going to the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah,
and
you did.
I believe that the Rockets are built because they have all the ingredients of a championship team. If you look at their defense, they're like top 5 in defensive rating in the NBA. They have a coach that cares and commits and has discipline and shows guys how to really want to win and hate your opponent in order to get that, you know, energy and that commitment out of them. And also the scoring ability with Jalen Green and Sengun and, you know, Thompson. They got really, really young core, but you're seeing it when you have that defensive identity and a coach like Ime Udoka, who in his playing days was a defensive-minded guy, and also with the Celtics brought that defensive mindset and that killer mentality to go, like, don't like become a fraternity with these guys. Go out there and want to dominate your opponent. Go out there and want to kill your opponent on that court with good defense and the ability to score at a high level. So I think with Houston, they're going to be a threat for a lot of teams. If there's any caveat, you do not want to play the Warriors first round. So you want to hopefully let the Timberwolves get to that 7 seed because you do not want to play Golden State. And if they do play Golden State, I think that is a disaster for Golden State because I think Houston has the makeup in order to beat that type of team. But flip side, Houston does not want to play Golden State because that is a team that can absolutely trample them and move to the second round.
Yeah, I mean, I like Houston's makeup. Like you talked about, to your point, Shark, their defense under Ime Udoka has been very good. Jalen Green's growth. And I think they have just the right touch of like veteran championship leadership with Fred VanVleet. Who, I really like his game. You got the hard-nosed kind of like asshole type with Dylan Brooks, the 3-and-D guy. So they got the right roster composition too. And then you talk about Sengun and Green, Jabari Smith, and Thompson. I mean, it goes on and on with their young talent. They're stacked. So I do like Houston to make some noise. It would be a very intriguing matchup if they end up, playing Golden State in that 2-7. I mean, wow. It makes me think of a couple years back where it was like that young Kings team with the Light the Beam team that played the Warriors and got knocked out in 7 games. So very interesting to see what will happen there. But yeah, I mean, I think the Western Conference playoffs are going to be very entertaining.
Yeah, the Western Conference. So let's flip it over to the East, right? As mentioned, Cavaliers have the number 1 seed. Celtics have
the race. I think
seed.
Shark.
What was that?
2-team race, right, Shark? We don't need to talk about those lesser seeds in the East.
Yeah, but I will say there's 2 teams that I would not want to play in the first round. It's the Detroit Pistons and it's the Orlando Magic. Those are 2 teams that are, like you said, scrappy, great defensive-minded teams, can score at a high level. Defending the 3, I mean, when you talk about defending the 3, those teams are up there in terms of defending at a high clip, the ability to reserve that time, and basically create opportunities. Like Cade Cunningham's having a coming out party this year, right? Banchero's finally healthy with Orlando. So I got to believe that, especially a team like the Celtics or even like the Cavaliers, if I'm the Cavs, I am trying to stay far away from Detroit because JB Bickerstaff is coming out with a surge of vengeance saying, hey, if you're going to let me go, I'm going to show you what my team is made of, and what could have been is now reality. So, I look at the East and I say the 2 teams that I do not want to play is the Pistons and Magic.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, the Magic were in the playoffs a year ago, won 7 games with Cleveland. Who obviously we've seen how good Cleveland is this season. And last year, even, they had the injuries. Obviously, they gave Boston a little bit of a series despite Mitchell being out towards the end. But regardless, Orlando, you said it. They are probably in the seed that they are because they had injuries. Wagner earlier in the year and Banchero missed a lot of time. Now they're healthy. They're a great defensive team, like you said. I think they're very well. They're young, but that experience last year, it means that this isn't going to be their first rodeo. And they have a guy late in Banchero who's a huge difference maker and quietly one of the stars of the league that we don't really talk about because he's probably buried in Orlando, where the attention is not. It's not a great basketball market or sports market there in Orlando.
It's the happiest place in the world. What are you kidding?
I will say Detroit, similar thing. Obviously, they don't have the playoff experience, but wow, what a season for the Pistons to go from, cellar dwellers, obviously, these last couple of years, and now you see Cade Cunningham, who is, once again, similar to Banchero, an outstanding young player who was first overall, yet still doesn't get the pub, just quietly does his job, and he does it well. And they're really building something nice there. They got their Thompson brother. They got Jalen Duran, who I absolutely love, as a throwback, kind of your old school center. The Pistons, they play to the city in the franchise. I mean, when you think Detroit Pistons, you think of defense and grit, toughness, and these guys are a younger version of that. I mean, they can score too. I mean, they're not. They don't lack that. They have the ability to put up points, but they also can grind with you too. And they're young, they're athletic, they can defend. They might get Milwaukee in the first round, it looks like. And I tell you, if I were the Bucks, I wouldn't want any part of seeing Detroit.
No. And just to talk about the Magic real quick, in correlation with that is Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris has been that veteran guy that they absolutely need, to bring like a little scoring punch, right? And that veteran leadership. He's been in the playoffs with the Philadelphia 76ers. Yeah, they're horrible in, the playoffs, but he has that experience. He can help out the young guys. And I think you're seeing a more mature Tobias Harris. When you look at it with Philly, he was more being, I guess in your face, lackadaisical at times, trying to, overshoot sometimes. And I think what, he's good at in Detroit is not forcing, the opportunity when he has guys that he can rely on. So I think JB Bickerstaff did a real good job this year with the Detroit Pistons. And I think that's mainly because they kind of, let Tobias Harris really like groom himself into the system versus like say, go out there and start forcing shots and don't play good defense and, don't worry about rebounding. Like you got to absolutely focus on the little things because that's what, Bickerstaff teams do. And, if you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers last year and they were built, with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell and, the young guy and Evan Mobley. But, I think Bickerstaff is proving that he can develop young talent. And so I think that, Cade Cunningham, having a superb year coming out party just proves the progression that JB Bickerstaff can bring as far as the coaching element to the table for Detroit for years to come. So I think that's something that's absolutely getting overlooked this year. And he could be coach of the year, but you're going to have a lot of competition in that category. But really quickly, just to touch upon, some of the MVP talk, I really think it's just a two guy race, right? When you look at it, it's, SGA, 32.5 points, 6.2 assists, and, 5 rebounds per game. But when you look at Nikola Jokic and what he's doing right now is absolutely insane. If you haven't been up to date, well, guess what? We're going to bring it to you right now because it is absolutely insane what he's putting up. He's averaging 30 points, 12.5 rebounds, and I believe right around 10 assists per game. So this guy is walking triple-double at 7'3", and probably close to 300 pounds and looking like Larry Bird out there. It's absolutely insane what he's doing. I don't think it's a season that should be overlooked as far as NBA history goes. He is making history. And guess what? He's without his coach now. And he's got to go into the playoffs, being ready and fresh. But I will tell you, probably one of the more impressive performances in season history, NBA wise.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of stole what I was going to say. Historically, in fact, never been seen before. No player has ever led the NBA. No player has ever been top 3 in points, rebounds, and assists to finish the season.
That's incredible. That just shows the versatility, how dynamic he can be as a player. And this is what's funny about it. The guy doesn't really care. Like if you look at it, he just wants to go home. He wants to race horses. He wants to enjoy the offseason. You saw it during the championship parade. He's a guy he gets very, very bored. And guess what? When you're that freaking good at being bored, you can only imagine what he'd be like if he took it even more seriously.
Yeah, it's funny because how the old cube monkeys and the regular Joes like Yash Shark who's sit in cubicles and work 9 to 5s and just we just look at it like, hey, it's a way to pay the bills and we keep on moving with our lives. We do the podcast. That is what the NBA is to Joker. He is ball arena where they play their home games is his cubicle. This is I do this. It's what I do for work. I make my living, and I want to get the hell out of here when when the game's done. It's 5 o'clock. Time to get out of here. A little early.
Little early.
Little exit from the playoffs early so he can go home and play with his horses.
Yeah, and he's I wonder if he. So no, this is not what he did. But I wonder if he had a say in firing Mike Malone so he could go
just
home
so he
early.
could get home early.
Yeah, and hang out with his little his ponies or
yeah,
they
look like ponies next to him. Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
that poor horse has to have a 7-foot, 300-pound guy. But yeah, as much as I love SGA, and as much as I thought he deserved to win the award last year, more so than this year.
He did.
And it's hard not to give it to him because they've, like I said earlier, from start to finish, they've been the resounding 1 seed in the West and up there for best record in the league consistently. But historically, we've never seen something what Joker's given us.
No.
So if you got to give the MVP to somebody, the guy who's making history versus a guy that obviously is like the best player on the ones. And listen, I'm not trying to discount SGA at all, but unfortunately, a guy is having a season nobody's ever seen before. I mean, I don't know how you don't give it to him. He had a week or two ago. Granted, I went to double overtime, but he had a 60-20-20 game.
Yep.
Like, what are we doing here?
Insane. People like, if you don't enjoy basketball, you got to enjoy that part of it. Like, you got to watch how good these players truly are. Don't think of it as just shooting the 3-ball NBA. Look at it as like a very, very dynamic league that is up there in terms of history. Like, we're seeing it above the charts in defensive rating. Almost every single team is putting up tremendous stats this year. And offensively, if you look at overall all-time offensively type of teams, this year is incredible. These past couple of years has been great to watch. You're seeing guys that come into their mold, right? Example, Anthony Edwards coming in and being a true leader to this team. Jason Tatum, Luka Doncic now with the Lakers. There's a twist to the turn, and there's a strong tide coming. And I think people got to start recognizing that the NBA is here, and it's here to last, and it's not here to just shoot the 3-ball. So I hope people understand that there is truly great young talent in this league, and I hope people understand to recognize the true talent and recognize that they're watching history right in front of their eyes. Speaking of history right in front of the eyes, the Masters. The Masters is here. It's the probably most fun week or weekend, going into Masters Sunday. And when you look at the pairings, heading into the Masters, right? You could get into it with obviously Scheffler and what he's capable of. You got Xander, you got Hovland, and then you got Rory with Ludwig and Akshay Bhatia. And you look at the pairings and you say, like, these pairings are just as good as watching guys pair on Sunday. So it's just fun to see that. Just to give you a little bit of leaderboard work here. So Corey Connors is second to Rose. Rose is 7 under, and he's already finished. This is Thursday night. We're talking Corey Connors 4 under, Scheffler 4 under, Aberg 4 under, Hatton 3 under, DeChambeau 3 under. And then, I guess the next big name you could possibly think of, is Rory had a troubling double bogey. But Bhatia is fun to watch, and he's 2 under. So there's a lot of good.
Shout out Freddie Couples, by the way.
Freddie Cups.
He's 1 under. Tied for
1 under.
I saw him and Bubble. I mean, obviously Freddie Couples is the senior on the tour, or this Masters. But yeah, a couple of guys kind of fell apart too. Morikawa was 3 under. Midway through the back 9, and then double bogeyed late. So that's a tough one. And then Joaquin Niemann was like 4 under in the front 9 at one, and then once again back 9 got to him, and he's even for the round.
Wow, he's even. Wow. Yeah, we were talking about it prior, and I didn't understand that Neiman was that bad right now. And then obviously McIlroy, I watched his double bogey.
Like,
it was disgusting.
It's tough. Listen, that's the story of Rory's career, or will be,
in the Masters.
In the Masters, but listen, he was a 3-foot putt away from winning the U.S. Was it last year on Father's Day?
Yeah,
that was brutal.
So when you look at the pool of players ticket, right? I guess what pops out to you as far as maybe a sleeper to win this tournament?
Yeah, well, once again, it might be cheating a little bit since we had day one in the books. But how about the vet, Justin Rhodes? He's just steady. But if I'm gonna, go away from that, going into it, there were a few guys that I kind of liked, maybe under the radar, that didn't have a great round one. Shane Lowry, somebody that I thought Neiman was another one that I liked. Not that he's super under the radar, but I guess I don't know if Lowry is either. Matt Fitzpatrick is somebody I like. Maybe as a long shot or sleeper. He's 1 under after today.
I'm gonna step in here, and I agree with you, Matt Fitzpatrick. I was, he was in. So I'm in a pool, and the tier 5 had all the live guys, but also a sneaky pick that nobody really thinks of is Patrick Reed. That guy, he's always in there. He's in the mix. He's either top 20. I think 2 years ago he finished in the top 5.
He's won it before.
He's won it before. So when you look at, experience matters. Trust me. Experience absolutely matters. Hideki Matsuyama is in there too, a guy that has won it in 2021. So you kind of look at the Masters pool and you develop a brainstorm around history. And kind of the way I calculated in picking my guys, I have Scheffler. I have Tagala. I have Hideki Matsuyama. I got JP Poston, and then I have Patrick Reed. So the reason why I went about doing that is because I was trying to formulate, okay, within the past 5 years of the Masters, where were guys sitting? Where were they? Where were they heading into Sunday, right? Because there is a little bit of a formula to it. If guys have experience, they're good at putting, they're good at the short game, I got to imagine that they're going to have a one-up notch coming into Sunday. And you got to imagine with Hideki Matsuyama and the way he's been playing as of late and the way he placed last year, I think he was around the 32 mark. He wants more, right? He's come out with a little bit of revenge for the 2021, Masters. So you kind of look at it. You got the live guys. It's funny, the golf rankings. If you look at the golf rankings, especially within the Masters, it's more about the PGA guys at the top, right? And then you got the live guys at the bottom, just because the way that the PGA rankings work with playing majors and playing tournaments, and you have the live guys in basically a different division, different league. So it's funny because you look at John Rahm, right? And Rahm won 2 years ago in 2023. And so it's funny to see him and the way he performs in live, and he's mic'd up and you're watching him throw a fit. You're still seeing that in day one of the Masters. So even if you've won, you could still go down that avenue, but you got to go with the cool, calm, and collected guys with experience that are great with the short game. That's kind of where I trigger my picks.
Yeah. I saw an interesting stat on X the other day. Shout out Ron Kloss, I guess, for PGA stats and splits. The last 13 Masters winners have gained at least 18 total strokes tee to green in their 4 major tournaments prior to the Masters. There were 14 players that are eligible for that this year. Heading into it, the guys towards the top of the list: Scheffler, Connors, Morikawa, Lowry, Spawn, Rory, Sepp Straka, who had a disastrous round today.
Awful.
DeChambeau, Aaron Ray, Zalatoris, Russ Henley, also disastrous round. Joaquin, Thomas, Fleetwood, Rahm, Spieth, Aberg, Matsuyama. So those are the guys that.
It's funny too. You mentioned Aaron Ray, right? So Aaron Ray is 2 under, right? He's
but he's in that
tied for 7. So
mix.
yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. But
like you said, guys that are typically hot coming into it, they're good with the putter. A guy like DeChambeau, I always think it's tougher for him because he tries to bully the course, and you can't really bully Augusta. But listen, he's going to have eagle opportunities on those par 5s for sure. And today obviously he got off to a pretty good start. He's 3 under. He's in the mix. Very curious to see how Rose does because this is a tournament, like you said, Shark. The experience really does matter, and that's why Tiger. I mean, obviously he's not in it this year, but like the only tournament, and he'll admit this, and I think he's alluded to it in other interviews in the last few years.
Yep.
He still has a chance at winning majors because of the Masters and because of obviously he knows that place like the back of his hand. And that's why, he doesn't need the physical. But if he's healthy enough to obviously do that, and in years past he's tried to push it and he's got the back issues and whatnot, but man, it would be nice to see Tiger in the mix again one more time on Sunday.
No, it would be. It's funny you mentioned Tiger because I was trying to see where Phil was, and Phil's right at the bottom, my friend.
He's lost some weight though. He looks good. I've seen him out there in some of the YouTube golf channels, and he's mixing it up with the younger guys. He's trying to, he's really great on X and Twitter, whatever you want to call it. He's awesome on there. But yeah, he did not have a good day.
No, he didn't. So like as far as experience, it matters if you're still young, right? Because Phil, for whatever reason, especially last year too, he did have a late spurt, right? Last year.
That Sunday.
Yeah, he tried to make it happen. But it's funny because when you look at the young core, right, and the future of golf, you got Aberg, you got Scheffler, you got Morikawa, you got guys.
Hovland, although he's had not a great year, but he's still
Schauffele's great. Schauffele's really fun to watch. I know he struggled a little bit, but it's just funny because when you think of golf, everyone thinks of like, oh, it's an old man's game, right? And it's like now you're seeing it, like Corey Connors, like you have a lot of younger guys.
Minwoo Lee.
Yeah, Minwoo Lee. I mean, what a performance he had last week. And so, you kind of look at the pool and you say, who's going to come away with the win? Who's going to be the guy? And if I'm going based on consistency, if I'm going based on guys that don't care if some shots go wrong, right? A good example of a guy that's on the other side of the spectrum where shots go wrong that affect them, it's Jon Rahm and it's Jordan Spieth. Oh my God, does Jordan Spieth just hit the game of golf?
It unravels fast
when he's off. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So if I look at the pool and who I'm looking at as a guy that can just, whether it's a good shot or bad shot, keep on going and keep on thriving and focusing on that shot, and then waiting to have a putting opportunity if you get on for eagle or you get on for birdie, it's Scotty Scheffler. Like Scotty's been there and done that. He won last year. He won a couple of years back as well. So if you look at the makeup of Scotty and what he's capable of doing, Scotty Scheffler has to be the favorite going into this because he won last year. But I think the reason why he is the favorite is because he doesn't let the small things get to him. And his swing is absolutely unorthodox. It's absolutely sometimes disgusting to watch. But guess what? It works. And if it works for him and his mind is clear, you got to go with him when it's all said and done on Sunday.
Yeah, it's hard to go. I mean, he's, me, Shark. I dabble in, gamble here on underdog and whatnot. But you know, Scheffler's odds in terms of from a gambling standpoint, in terms of where they set him at, is comparable to Tiger in his prime. I mean, it's crazy that he's like 4-1 on Masters when, like any other tournament, a favorite's billed at 10, 11-1, 12-1. So, I mean, and right now after round one, he's 3 shots back. He's at 2-1. Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
He's obviously the favorite for a reason, Shark. Like all those reasons you mentioned, he's steady, he's composed, he's great. He's a great putter. I mean, today he hit almost like a 60-foot putt to save par, and it's like, all right, well, if that's what he's doing, you might as well give him the green jacket now.
Give him the green jacket. Give it to him. Give it to him. I will say too, I always thought about this. I always thought about this. If you win the Masters multiple times, or like Tiger and Scotty and Gary Player, all those guys, right? They sometimes deserve more than just a green jacket. They deserve a gold jacket. So like if you win multiple times, right? And I know it's a tradition to put on the green jacket. I get it. But a gold jacket, if you won like more than 3 times or even 3 times, I think you should get a gold jacket. Because like 3 is insane. It's the grand slam of golf, right? It's incredible.
That's what they play for.
Exactly. It is.
Win the Masters, to play at Augusta.
Yeah. So going into Sunday, I can't wait for it. I really can't. I know, the weekend hasn't even started, but
I'm with you though.
It's fun. It's fun. Saturday's always fun too. Like Saturday, I think is my favorite though ticket, because I think that's when you start seeing the push where guys, whether that's on a par 5 and, say they're about 240 yards away, from getting onto the green. And guess what? They're going to take that opportunity. They're going to risk it all and they're going to go for it. Right. And that's like really, really fun to see. And we saw it with Rory today. Rory had a monster shot and he got on the green. But then when the ball ran off the rough, he then had a little too much spice on it, and that ball just kept going and going and going into the water. And it was tough to see because he was having a great round. He was 4 under at that point. And he was at the top of the leaderboard. And it just shows if you have 1 or 2 really bad shots, it can go into a different direction. But, with Scotty Scheffler, it seems like he really doesn't ever have that bad of a shot.
No, he doesn't. And if he does, he scrambles and he makes par. So what are you going to do?
Exactly. But any final thoughts on the Masters tournament?
Yeah, I'm hoping Sunday, we look back when next time we record Shark next week, and we are able to talk about how it was appointment television. I think last year it seemed like we were going to get a taste of it, and then Schauffele fell apart, and towards the end of the front 9, and it really wasn't much of a race. You just want Sunday at the Masters to be close. You want to be turning on your TV at like 3, 4 in the afternoon and watching those last couple of holes and guys dueling it out. Probably going to be Scheffler in a runaway again. But, hey, listen, Justin Rose, who knows? Maybe he sticks around. He's got a 3-shot lead. You play par golf, Justin, tomorrow, and all of a sudden you're probably still at the top of the leaderboard.
Justin Rose. You can also throw him in the category with Rahm and Spieth. If this guy has 1 or 2 bad shots, it absolutely explodes on him. So keep an eye on it. I'm not saying it could happen, but I think it will happen.
Yeah, it sucks that Rory, like if he was just 2-3 under today, he had such a big. If he just held serve those last few holes, obviously the blow up, the double bogey, but like, man, it'd be really nice to see Rory have a chance, because the last time I think he finished 3rd a few years, 2 years ago maybe, but it was a really big push on Sunday. He wasn't really in the mix. No, it was just he had a great, unbelievable round on Sunday, but like he really wasn't ever. You felt like, oh, Rory's right there on Sunday.
No, and that goes it was Rahm and it was Rory.
Yeah,
neck and neck. And what was the bunker shots? That was impressive too. The Colin Morikawa bunker shot, and then the Rory McIlroy bunker shot.
Yeah, But listen, I mean, Rahm, it's funny how much that shifted with Rahm too. Like he was kind of the guy before, right as Scheffler was ascending, it was like, oh, you gotta like Rahm's gonna be in every tournament, and now he's just listen, he can't hide the Spanish bull side in him, you know. He's emotional. It's the Spaniards, sometimes they get a little bit too emotional. They let their emotions, they wear it on their sleeve, Shark. And boy, if he hits a bad shot, he lets you know.
He lets you know. Hey, you heard him probably in the Masters app, like if you watch live, even on TV. I mean, those guys are mic'd up, and you could hear everything. And I mean, I heard Jordan Spieth earlier. I watched that lunch, and you hear him, swearing up a storm. It's like, what? Take a chill pill, right? Like, this is golf. It's a tough game, right? It's a tough game, but
he's had some tough moments over the years there too. So I'm sure that's part of it, like he hits a battle and he's like, here we go again.
Yeah.
It's human nature. At the end of the day, I mean, that's a you got to compartmentalize. I am fucking
compartmentalize things.
Yeah, you know what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. Like if you look at
does so well.
Yeah, and if you look at also Bryson used to be a hothead, right?
Yes,
Him and Brooks Koepka used to hate each other. It was just one of those things where they couldn't stand each other. But also Bryson would always be a hothead and just absolutely throw up all over himself. And if you look at it this year and really like truly like the past probably 3 years, he's been a guy that's more collected. He's focusing on his shots. He's focusing. He feels a little bit looser. So, you kind of wonder, if he went through, some type of therapy session.
Do you watch his stuff, by the way, on YouTube? His channel, like the Breaking 50 and all that.
Oh yeah, I love it.
He's pretty good with that.
He's pretty good. He's good with it. And I just wish, like, going back to it, I wish Rahm would do that, because if there's any guy that can take over the golf game with Scheffler, it's absolutely Rahm when he's on. But
he's great.
When he is off mentally, it's not even when he's off on his game. When he's off mentally, he just absolutely destroys himself. And it's like, dude, like, take it easy. Take it one shot at a time. You have so much potential. That golf swing is like, he like brings it back like 3/4 of a swing. And I'm like, how are you getting this much power? How are you like having this much control? So you kind of wonder if he needs a new caddy, right? A lot of these guys. But yeah, no. So we got the Masters Sunday. We got NBA, finishing off the season soon.
Playoffs.
Tip of the cap to the Florida Gators and Al Horford, for winning a national championship. Corey Brewer, Torian Green, Joakim Noah, all those guys. When you think about the way that they won.
Billy the Kid.
Billy the Kid, Billy D, baby. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we will get into a lot more discussion next week with the NFL draft coming up. We're going to have Mark Cannizzaro of the New York Post, joining us for the conversation to break it all down with the NFL draft. So tune in next week and the week after. We appreciate all the time. Thanks, Ticket.
Thank you.